On this episode of AVSocial, we talk with Harman Professional Solutions about how exhibitors and attendees can engage on social media from trade shows to connect with their audience.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVSocial episode 26, Socially Remote.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by HD Base T.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Dawn Mead, host of AVSocial here at AVNation.tv. And we're here today with a special guest, Kyle Davis, who is the content marketing strategist at Harman Professional Systems. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Dawn. How you doing?
Very good, thank you. It's a good Friday afternoon, nice and sunny here on the East Coast. How are things where you're located?
It's sunny. I don't know if I would say it's nice, but it's definitely sunny.
Very
That's Texas,
warm.
so it's hot.
Oh, yeah. Texas, my goodness, that is definitely hot. All right, so that tells me where with Harman you are, down in the artist formerly known as AMX land, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, today, folks, we're going to be talking about how marketing and social teams can be effective with trade shows. We are just a month out from InfoComm last month, and we did a lot of stuff leading up to InfoComm. And now we're in sort of the post-show days on how we follow up with things with trade shows like InfoComm, Digital Signage Expo, CES, whichever shows you attend. And so we're going to talk about that with Kyle and share our own experiences here. So, as I said, with marketing and social teams expanding, sometimes you do cover events like InfoComm, CEDIA, et cetera, right live from the conference on social. And sometimes you support them remotely. Just a real quick question for you, Kyle. This year at InfoComm, were you at the show or were you one of the remote staff assisting?
This year I was remote. I've been there in the past. I've done it both ways, but this year we did it remotely.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
And both are good in different ways. In the past, I've done more of the content collection side of things and trying to find things. This year, we actually had one of our social media guys was out. His wife was having a baby, so he was out. And so I was supporting social media. And what we found is that generally speaking, if you're doing the tweeting and the posting, especially for Harman, because we have people think, oh, well, it's Harman. That's a brand like any other. Well, no, but you got to remember we have JBL, AMX. We actually have 54 social media channels that we have to feed.
You
right?
have all the brands.
We have all the brands, right? And they all have not just one, but at least 2, 3, 4 social media channels. So that's a lot of social media that you're trying to feed and distribute out throughout the show. And so to do that much social media, you have to have a hardline connection. You can't just do it all on your phone and be flipping back and forth between that many channels. You have to be sitting at a laptop and have a hardline connection. And so a lot of times that's a lot easier to do remote if you're doing the posting and the scheduling and the
right
and that kind of thing. So that's why. So we did it remote this year, and that worked really well for the kind of things we were doing this year.
Well, were most of your, I know you said you had a few folks there at the show. Was most of the content team or the marketing team that you deal with, were most of them remote, or did you have like some folks covering live from the field, so to speak, and others in office with you with the hard lines?
We had people there that were doing content collection. We had, video people and other marketing people that were taking photos and videos and doing interviews and that kind of stuff to sort of collect content at the show and to let us know stuff that was going on and that kind of stuff. And then we'd get it back here and then we'd get it queued up and ready to go and push it out from here.
Okay. Well, I mean, one of the points of having this particular episode was to find out how exhibitors and attendees engage on social media to connect with their audience. And those of us that have been doing social media for more than 5 minutes, we know it's all about the engagement with your audience, be they customers, be they integrators in the case of you as a manufacturer. because you were remote, yes, you had people collecting content at the show, but what were some of the challenges you faced in engaging with your customers that may actually be at the show when you yourself weren't, or having questions about the show that you would have to then, I guess, get in touch with your guys on the ground? Or how did that work? What challenges did you face?
Sort of the task is to always to sort of we had these people that were there that were getting content for us, but they're also trying to handle other things and stuff, because as if you've ever been to a trade show, nobody just goes and just does one thing. I mean, I would love to see the budget of the person who can send, people there where everybody does one thing. That would be a crazy staff. But no, everybody's doing 15 billion things. And so, so you got to send a text or a call and say, hey, can you get me a picture of so-and-so or this, or like Harmon, we found out that we had, gear in the Samsung booth, and showing Samsung, displays with our AMX Ascendo line and all that stuff. And so, hey, can somebody run over to the Samsung booth, and leave the Harmon booth to go run over the Samsung booth to take photos of that and do that kind of stuff. And so that always takes coordination, but really it's just about, good communication. So it's a challenge to make sure everybody you're getting what you need, but it really just is you got to bug people and say, hey, can you go get this for me or go do that, and then you get what you need, and it's that big a deal. The other thing, as far as communicating directly with customers, the thing about trade shows is that a lot of people, not everybody, we can't reach the people who don't use social on social. That sounds obvious, but it's a thing to remember that as a social media person, I'm like, well, I want to reach everybody, all these people I'm not missing. Well, that's not your job. That other people, that's their job to go and do that. At social media, our little part of the world is to get those people that are online. And the nice thing about trade shows is when you're at trade shows, people love to use social media, especially Twitter. People that are on Twitter love to use Twitter for social media. It is the channel, and so, and then really the trick is to find out where those people are. And a lot of the time, and this is why you need a nice hardline connection, is a lot of the time during trade shows, you're posting stuff out, but you're also doing a lot of fishing. For our trade show, I actually was in this room that I'm in here, and there's a big TV over there that you can't see display, and I have a monitor that I brought from my desk that turns portrait way, and I put it up, and so I had the hashtag AV tweets on one, and then I had the hashtag Infocom 17 on the other one, or whatever. And so and those were auto refreshing, and then I'm digging in and doing search terms like, is somebody using the word Harmon? Because the thing is not everybody mentions you. Not everybody, will say the thing, or sometimes they'll misspell something, or they'll, or they'll do this or that, or they'll tag the wrong people, or they won't tag you at all. And so how you go in and find out, oh, somebody used, just said AMX Ascendo. Well, what did they have to say? Oh, they shared a really cool picture or whatever. And going in and finding what they have to say, so then you can, reply to that or like that, and then you can share that out and let other people sort of see those good pictures and things. One of the things that we did for the show this year is my sort of day job, besides sort of helping out with social media, is particularly I sort of help manage the blog, and that's a big part of my day job. And so for the trade shows, what we started this back at CES, is that we do these daily updating blog posts where every day we go through and we dig out all of the, some of the top posts that were out there, videos that were shared by not just us, but other people, Twitter posts that people shared, photos and things. And then we go and embed that all into the blog post. And then you have a nice sort of, you can go back and look and kind of get a highlight reel of the week, whether you've been following everything on social media or not. And you have a nice sort of picture of what happened. And so we were sort of going into doing it. And that's kind of one of the things that I go and do. And the trick to that is that you got to go find people who aren't talking about you. So that's kind of the biggest, who are talking about you, but maybe not saying, they may mention Harmon, not Harmon Pro, or they may not mention you at all, that kind of stuff. And go find them.
So it sounds like in order to get the engagement happening at the trade show, especially remote from Texas there, you almost had a command center going with the live Twitter wall and with some, I guess, analytics searches going to find all these terms and look for something similar. And it sounds like a lot of work. It's a good thing you had a nice cozy office there and weren't trying to do it running around the trade show floor like some of us fools that report live, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely was a command center type approach here. We, snag a conference room and say, we're just going to book it all day and not feel guilty about it and set it up and had it work. So, yeah.
That's great. So what sort of scheduling do you do before the show starts? I know, they say, at least on the integrator side, an hour of prep work at the beginning of a project can save you 4 to 12 hours at the end of the project in problems. I imagine the same is on the manufacturer front with social. Do you do a ton of scheduling in advance? I know you said there's a lot of communication with your ground crew, so to speak, for gathering the content.
Yeah, absolutely. Because really all of that stuff that we're trying to do is this isn't maybe the nicest term, but it's the best way I can describe it. It's filler, right? It's the stuff you want to fill out to round out to give a picture of the show. The
Right.
core of what we're trying to do, because we're our marketing, and we are trying to tell people about our message. And so all of that stuff we can do beforehand. And so what are the products? We have products that are coming out that are new, like the AMX Insight video switcher that we wanted to talk about. We knew that was coming out. And then we had products like the AMX Ascendo and the Vibe and Core and all those different kinds of things that we were talking about. And so we knew we had all these devices that were new stuff and old stuff. And so we need to go in and we went ahead and pre-wrote out the content because we knew that what products were coming out. We knew they were coming out, what the deal was on them. So we wrote all of those beforehand and queued them up. And so, and then, write the content that you need and then you schedule it up. We use a software called Spreadfast that's a social media software. And that just happens to be the tool we use. And we use the social media tool to queue everything up. And then we spread it out throughout the show. So that way we're talking about stuff throughout the show. And then because especially on things like the Insight, because it's an AMX product, but it also has Crown amplifiers and BSS and DBX, all these different things in it. We wanted to talk about it on the AMX channel, but we also wanted to talk about it on BSS and Crown and DBX, right? So we had to space them out. So we didn't have people that happen to follow multiple channels by us didn't get the same post, or not even the same post, but a similar post or a post about the same product or the same post 4 different times immediately on Twitter. That's just overkill. That looks bad. So we had to write all the content and then we had to space it out so that it was hitting people throughout the day, throughout the show. And then you have all that spaced out. And then as you get new stuff, you can fill it in or, retweet and do whatever and be timely. But then you have the sort of the main product message that we queued up beforehand.
Kind of the scheduled framework and then the ad hoc additions that happen in the spontaneity of the show or with special announcements that might get made and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Awards or whatever that, that came through. And that made it a lot easier because, trying to write all that stuff or to do all that stuff at the show really makes that hard. So you'd absolutely have to have, even if you have it all written, because I've done that in the past. I've heard of other people, you get a big list, have it all written, but then you still, the day of, you go in and copy paste. Well, that you saved yourself a little time, but you're still having to go do all that stuff. If you schedule it, then you set it and forget it, as the old saying used to be.
Yeah. I know, speaking from the integration front, one of the things that is a challenge for me when I go to a show like InfoComm is that very fact that I'm trying to run around and see all the things, but I also want to get on Twitter and tell people about the exciting things I'm seeing or the fantastic, cool class that I just took, for example. And that's a big challenge for us because we can't do the prepared stuff in advance the way you do. So I guess in a way it's beneficial for you being a manufacturer because you already know what you're going to talk about in each instance and you're able to prepare that in advance, whereas we're frantically tweeting and taking pictures on the fly, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's still reactionary stuff, but but you do know beforehand. It's actually, kind of funny. There were used to be the knowing beforehand. Speaking of that, there used to be we used to, sort of do some, as part of our teasing campaign. I was actually in some videos where I was trying to ask people, what's going to be announced? What are we going to talk about? But because of my other role, I knew everything was going to be announced. So I had to go in and play the role of the guy who's trying to get everybody to tell me what's coming out. But of course I knew what's coming out. So it was always kind of fun to do that and go, ooh, I don't know what's going on. What are we going to talk about? But then of course, but that's always fun. That's part of it, I guess.
Right. I know one thing that's pretty big for us integrators and for some of like the regional distributors and rep firms and things are sort of regional events or local shows. And, I'm just curious, as a big manufacturer, I mean, Harman's one of the big ones. Do you do a lot of engagement at some of these local shows, or how do you use social? Do you use social in getting involved in these sorts of things? Like, for example, I know Kelly has, her company AVI does AVI shows throughout the Midwest. Here in the Mid-Atlantic, I know Simcoe is a rep firm that they do local regional shows, or some, some of the rep firms and distributors might do, little pop-up shows, mini infocoms, they would refer to them. Does Harman, or do you get involved with any of those? And if so, how does social play a role in that?
We do play, we do get involved in some of those things. As far as from a social standpoint, we do what we can when we can. It's kind of one of those, we only have so many man hours, and it's like, sometimes you go, well, with size, you're big, and I think people assume we must have, 500 marketing people in the thing. It's like, no, we just simply have more stuff to do and the same amount of people to do it, in a lot of times. So, we have a lot of stuff, a lot of social media channels and a lot of stuff and a small amount of teams. So we do as much as we can to try to help those guys and in whatever ways we can. And
I do know that I have run into your AMX and in a previous life, your SVSI guys at some of these local shows. And it's usually just the regional guy or the government guy, since we're here in DC. So I didn't know if there was a lot of engagement between them and your office being sort of the head of content, or if they just sort of like, well, here's the general info, good luck, Yeah,
well, we try to help as much as we can, like I said.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay,
great. So just in general, when you start getting ready for, I know we're after InfoComm at this point, but it's the AV world. Another show is probably just around the corner in the next few months. What's your strategy going into trade shows for promoting it? During the run-up, during the event itself, and then, of course, where we are now, for InfoComm anyway, the post-show period?
Well, whenever we have a show coming up, which we always do, right? CD is coming up, which is not as big with us now in the pro space, because a lot of that's more lifestyle on their side. But we do have the the AMX residential products that feed in to control that, and so they have that coming up, and then it's already people talking about ISE, but so it's always leading up. There's something coming, CES, actually before ISE even. And so when we have a show coming up, we start out with trying to sort of run up interest of what we're talking about at the show. And now and a lot of it starts with what's going to be the big thing this year at this particular show. Is there a particular product we're announcing that's going to be a big deal? Is there an existing product or products that we're pushing? Is it a solution set? Whatever it is. And then what's the sort of the story around that? And then we, try to figure that out. If it's a new product, we try to tease. At ISE, we were coming out with the Ascendo line of the Vibe and the Core, and we were going to announce that. So we had to start saying, okay, new solutions for huddle space. How can you solve your huddle space problems? And from social media and email and content and everything, just trying to get people kind of thinking about some of those things. And we even did an interview with Sean Robinson and Lee Dodson, sort of saying, what are some trends that are coming up, and some things that people deal with. And we kind of tied into some of the things that fed into some of the reasons why we made the products we made, even though we weren't talking about those products because they weren't announced yet. We were talking about those things to get people kind of, that's some things that AMX and Harman and, and the other brands at Harman are all thinking about, right now. So, I wonder what's going to happen at the show, and try to
Point out
get
the
people
need
to kind
before
of,
you announce the product, kind of.
right. And so then during the show, we continue that on, whatever that theme is, whether it's a new product or existing or whatever, we continue that theme. And then at the end of the show, especially when there's new products, we try to trickle out emails and social media content and ads to kind of remind people of what it was. But again, for it to be effective, you have to have that through line from start to finish,
right,
to make it work, right? And it's easy to get off message. And so, especially when you have as many brands and as many things that are going on at a large company, it's easy to get off message. But I think we do a pretty good job of figuring out what that is and carrying it through. And that's really the trick.
And just one last quick question then, since you brought it up there. You have had that many brands and that many accounts. Do you have any, you mentioned one briefly, but do you have any specific tools or apps that you use to kind of manage juggling the social on all of those things?
Well, like I said, Spreadfast is our main tool, and that's what we use to kind of, to see what's going on and to schedule out our content. And then, but outside of Spreadfast, a lot of what we do is really just comes down to using the actual social media channels, because while we do post native occasionally, we may not use it so we don't necessarily use it for posting, but it's a great way to there's nothing replaces being engaged in the community, online, in the social, and to see what's there, because there's so many things that we come across, and I come across personally, that I just found because I'm following somebody who said something about something, and I go, oh, hey, that's cool. Or, hey, somebody posted a picture of this, email out and say, hey, this is cool. Or so-and-so posted an article. Tim wrote a nice thing on this thing. Let's go share that out, whatever it is. And so if we, see those things, we go share them out. Nothing really replaces that. I think that's easy to sort of get caught up in tools and methodologies and approaches, but really nothing replaces actually caring about it.
I was going to say, at the end of the day, if you're a content marketing specialist, you're about curating and you're about exploring, and then you're about sharing. So very cool. Appreciate your time today, Kyle. Do you have any wrap-up thoughts for us? Any deep thoughts from the world of Harman quickly? And
Not at all. I mean, other than what I'd said, just simply that it's a lot of fun working at Harman, and and I think social media, especially working social media at Harman, it's all about really pointing out those synergies, because while we have, all these brands and all these channels, at the end of the day, really what the power of what Harman offers is how these different brands work together. And so from a social media standpoint, it's all about making those channels, be able to sort of talk about how they work with everything else, and that Crown's not working in a box, or JBL is not working in a box, because you got to have the Crown and the JBL together. You don't have the amp and the speaker, they're not going to do anything, right? So, it's that kind of thing, to make sure everybody sees how all of these things come together, and to do that in social media is really a lot of fun.
that's great. Thank you so much, Kyle, for joining me today and talking about all this, sharing a little bit from inside the mind of Harman, so to speak. Where can folks find you on social, since you are the social man?
Okay, well, let me tell you all 54 social media channels. No, I'm kidding.
Where can people find you? I think
find
able to
me.
find Harman. Yeah.
Okay, find me specifically. You can find me on Twitter at @SKyleDavis, or on LinkedIn at LinkedIn/IN/SKyleDavis. So,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming once again. And everyone, once again, I am, as usual, Dawn Mead, AV Dawn, hosting here at AVNation, your AVSocial show. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you learned a lot, and we hope to see you here again next month. Thanks. Bye.